Hello, I'm Mally Shansfeld, Managing Editor of Endodontic Practice US and Implant Practice US, Medmark Publications. Welcome to a live presentation and question and answer with Dr. Jason Streeter. In our webinar today, we will be discussing 5 ways to decrease overload and increase productivity. Before we get started, I would like to invite viewers to see the chat box on the right side of your screen to ask any questions, and your questions will be answered at the end of the session. Now I'm pleased to introduce our guest for today. Dr. Jason Streeter received his bachelor's degree in business management with a minor in chemistry and biology from Brigham Young University, Idaho in 2012. He then received his doctorate of dental surgery at Creighton University School of Dentistry in Omaha, Nebraska. He graduated top 5 in his class with the distinction of Summa Cum Laude. In 2017, Dr. Streeter established a private dental practice in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He's a technology enthusiast, especially if those technologies improve his dental work and patient comfort. Dr. Streeter, we turn the webinar over to you to learn more about your topic for today.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, my PowerPoint here. So, okay. So, today we're talking about increasing productivity and decreasing overhead, specifically with Curve Hero, which is a dental management software, and they are the sponsors of this webinar. And I'm basically just a practice owner. I just run a private practice. Like in my introduction, I love technology, and I was I'm going to talk more about this, but I started looking into different private practice management softwares and became aware of Curve Hero and started using it. And then they did kind of a routine reach out their team to say, how's it going with the software? And I had a lot of feedback on things that I loved about it, things that I thought that they could add or change, and started this discussion. And the company, to their credit, was very responsive to that input, and basically asked me if I would be an advocate and do different things to talk about the software and give them certain feedback. And I was happy to do so because I think it's a great software. And so that's basically why I'm presenting. Is I think it's great. And the point of this is not just to talk about Curve Hero, but just to show you some ways that new softwares that maybe you haven't seen before could help your practice, because there's some really exciting stuff going on right now with the introduction of cloud softwares and so forth. So I'm going to jump right in here. So thanks to Curve Dental for sponsoring the program. I have a little bit of a different background than some. I grew up on a farm in southern Idaho in the middle of nowhere. We had cattle. We had tractors, fields. I was out there moving irrigation lines and everything growing up. And my dad told me that I was his worst farming son. His other sons all knew how to just do everything, and I was better at computers and chemistry and things like that, and kind of went a different direction. But the point of talking about this is that I came into dentistry without sort of this generational aspect or background. I didn't have any loyalty to Henry Schein or Patterson or whatever. Very open to just figuring out how to run my business the best that I could and explore different options and opportunities and see what's out there. I bought a practice right out of school in 2017. It was an older practice, and there was a lot of challenges associated with that, obviously, with managing the employees. I completely renovated the whole thing. I was trying to get new patients in. I was trying to digitalize. We had old paper records that I was trying to get into the computer, into the system, and updating my equipment and so forth. And after sort of the dust settled on trying to figure out a lot of this, I really started to dig into the practice management software. I'd used Dentrix before, and that's what the software was for the practice. But as an owner, I was really looking at it and digging in, trying to get reports on the practice, how many active patients we have, and all of these sorts of things, and make my note templates more efficient and all of this. And I started to just look at it and say, you know what, this is pretty dated. Why is this the coming from newer softwares like Google Slides that I'm using right now, that are very sleek, very streamlined, and so forth. This to me looks like something from Windows 95, and in fact, it was introduced in 1987, the year I was born, and it hasn't changed a lot since then. Although they've added a lot of new features, and this has really uh, helped push things forward. Um, but so my point here isn't to rag on Dentrix. It's just to point out, like, this software was, and EagleSoft. A lot of these softwares have been around for a long time, and that framework has become dated, and they've added new things onto it, but they've kind of tacked these things on. If we look down here, we see the appointments, the family file, the ledger, the office manager, the patient chart. These are like different software applications altogether that you need to load up, and they're going to load on the bottom of your computer, and that takes a while. If you go to close them, as I recall, the perio chart actually gives you a warning. Are you sure you want to close this? You're going to have to reopen it again. Maybe you should just minimize it. And so there were all these things that I started to go, this, surely there's something newer, more efficient, kind of more streamlined for my practice, because this is what we use every single day. And these types of interactions are so, these clicks, waiting for things to load, it affects our efficiency every single day. Well, I started digging in, and I realized that my software was on the G4 version, which came out in 2009, and they were coming out with Dentrix G7 at that time. So I was 9 years behind, and I thought, here, this is why everything's so outdated. I'm way behind on my software updates, and I'm sitting here paying monthly for the maintenance plan to get new updates. I just need to bring this up, and then I'm going to see amazing results. So I called them up. I said, let's update my software. And they said, we can't. Your hardware is too old. You need to be on Windows 10. You need these certain hardware specifications. Your server needs to be 2012, and so on. So I got IT involved. I got a new server for around $1,500, if I recall. I got 6 new workstations. I got everything up to date. It was very expensive. It was very time consuming. And the outcome was incremental, minimal changes. Everything pretty much looked and operated the same. In that time, they had introduced a health history module, which was really nice. But for the most part, the software is the same, and that groundwork is the same. And I was too busy and too tired and too fed up to do anything more with it. So I said, this is what it is. I'm going to move on. But then later, I started seeing add-ons that you can get. You can, these really nice modern features by the likes of, for example, Lighthouse, that give you a lot of patient engagement options, to text your patients, to send them birthday reminders, to send them reminders for their appointments, either through text or email. What else? Really cool softwares such as Dental Intelligence, that give you these nice patient practice reports to look at key indicators. Also, modern payment solutions if your patients want to pay online or pay through text or whatever. There's a ton of these. And I started looking into that and going, okay, I'd love to have some of these features, but holy cow, that's going to be $400 a month probably for Lighthouse. That's going to be like $500 a month for Dental Intelligence. This is going to really add up. And how do I know which ones of these to add on? But I want these features, so what do I do? And then after some time, it kind of hit me, why don't I look at what other softwares are available altogether? Maybe there's something that includes these things I'm looking for. And that's a daunting thought. I didn't want to change practice software. I didn't know what would be involved in all of that with my records and the transfer, and how big of a pain it would be. But I started to look to see what's out there, and you quickly run into websites that'll say things like this: the best dental software of 2021, and give you kind of an overview of the things out there, give you a chance to do some demos and read their review and get an idea of what you're going to be looking at. We can see Curve Hero here. We can see Dentrix Ascend, which is a pretty new offering from them, Open Dental Care Stack, etc. So I started looking into this. One of the first things that I noticed is you've got best cloud software, cloud software, cloud software. Most of the new offerings are going to be cloud software. so so that kind of became my mindset. Like maybe I should go to the cloud, and a lot of you have probably thought about that. And why is that taking over? And I'm going to go into this more. But for example, you have inherent cost savings with going to the cloud because you no longer need to have these workstations with specific operating systems. You don't have to have a server at all if it's a true cloud software. You can have easy remote access, less investment into security, backups. Hardware agnosticism is what I just said, basically, that if you can log into the internet, if you can get onto the internet and log into their software, it doesn't matter what system you're using or what computer you're using, and support. So definitely I started thinking, okay, I want to go cloud if I'm going to make this jump, because this is where it's at. And I don't regret that at all. I absolutely believe that. I'm going to make a quick note on some of the things that I was looking at as I looked to switch, because like I said, this is daunting and there's a lot of offerings, and it's, you might be thinking, I don't know how this is going to work out. So I was looking for a true cloud system, because what I saw when I started looking through the list is that some of these are like hybrids where you still need a server, but maybe the backups of your records are going to be through the cloud. So you're not scheduling a backup. That's happening, but a lot of it's still happening on premise, which I didn't want. I was looking at the data conversion. Obviously, that's a huge concern, making sure that if I switched, they were going to get all my data that I just spent all this time and money digitalizing and get it into the new software without any hiccups. I was looking for complete management that could handle the records, the billing, everything to run my practice. I didn't want an add-on. I didn't want a light version where I'd still have to have other software involved. What if you have multiple clinics? I don't, but I was looking at those things. Data security, is this something where they're leveraging a huge cloud providers such as Amazon or Microsoft Azure, or is it where they've got their own server that they're trying to handle this with? I wouldn't have felt as comfortable with that. Some warehouse where they've got a bunch of servers. The user interface, obviously, what does that look like? Continued investment. What have they done recently with their updates and so forth? What's in their pipeline? What is their goal? And then what's their customer support look like? I do not want to do things only through chat. I want to be able to call someone. I want to be able to know that it's a real person that I can understand. And so those were some of the things that I was looking at. And obviously, I ended up going with Curve Hero, even though I thought there were some other good ones. When I did all the demos and whatnot, I really liked their interface. And so I'll be talking a little bit about this. But the point is not just to push Curve Hero, but to show you some ways that these new softwares might be a huge benefit to your practice. If you haven't looked at doing anything, you just say, this is what everyone uses. This is what I've been using. I don't want to look into anything new. Okay. So how has this reduced overhead in my practice? Well, obviously with the hardware and IT, I did all that expensive updates, and now I don't even need a server at all. You might still need a server for your CBCT or something like that on a specific workstation, but I don't need a server to run my software at all. The tech support is really minimal here, because now it involves basically, can your computer turn on and connect to the internet, and can you log in? you're ruling out so many different things that can happen with the hardware that can cause problems. I had a problem one time loading the reports, and they were able to log in from their side and look at it. They said, hey, the reports are working good on our side, so now we need to figure out what's going on your side. And there's not that much that it could be. Let's look at your browser. I was using Chrome. Okay, that's good. Let's look at your add-ons. And I had an add-on like a ad blocker, and they said, disable that add-on and let's see. And sure enough, then the report's loaded. There's not that many things that can go wrong with this. And you might ask, what about on their side? Do you have problems and outages? Because if they aren't keeping it going on their side, you're in big trouble. I have never had an outage on Curve side or any sort of issues. I've had a couple of weird glitches with the user interface that just I refreshed the browser and then it was fine. But we've never had any downtime because of that. So that's been excellent. I did have some downtime when my internet went out, but I was able to use my phone and my data and basically pull it up anyway and get through the rest of the day. So now your issue is, just do you have internet basically? Flexible workstations and operating systems, this can run, you're just logging into Chrome. So this can run off of an Apple system. This can run off of Windows 7. It can run, if you can get onto Chrome, you can do it. So my workstations now, I've got little tiny workstations that can easily like hook onto the underside of a countertop. They don't need to be super robust and have tons of RAM or anything like that. They don't need a lot. You're not storing the data on the workstations. You don't need a large hard drive. Very nice. Instant backups. The second that you change something on your side, it's going to be reflected on their servers. And the second you upload a radiograph, whatever, it's not happening nightly. It's not happening. You don't have to do any work. You don't have to set up some kind of backup onto a hard drive or onto an e-backup. You don't need to pay anything for that. It's just done immediately. I think that they do also do like a more thorough backup of your whole system to create redundancy at certain points, but that's not something that you even need to think about. And then reliability, I just mentioned, and I haven't had any downtime with this. Security, one of the challenges that we have is that we're supposed to keep all of our data secure, but we're also supposed to have redundancy. So a lot of us have, we might have old charts in a storage locker somewhere. We might have it backed up on a hard drive in our office, and then probably e-backed up as well. And the security on all of that's maybe not the best, but if you're doing it this way, and you can watch videos, this Curve does theirs through Amazon Web Services, and you can look into that. Amazon spends billions probably on their security with literal retina scanners, every kind of security against hackers, against people actually coming in, and not just against that, but against hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever. This is their business model, and they have massive clients. They're going to put a lot more into security than you are on your on-premise server. So a lot of really nice things with that. Going into the support, I already talked about this, but they can log right in and see exactly what you're seeing and walk through things with you because they can see what's going on their end and on your end. They're not logging in through like TeamViewer. They can see it on their side, and there's just not a lot of things that can go wrong with it. So that's really nice. Talking about how this increases productivity, the remote access. When you get onto the internet and you go to the login, this is what you see. Just you put in your username, put in your password, and whether you're at home or anywhere, you're going to be in your full system with access to your records, your x-rays, everything that's on there, and no matter what. So if you here in Colorado, we sometimes have winter storms and stuff. And then we're trying to call patients to tell them that we're going to close the office, and we're trying to get these phone numbers and whatnot. Usually we would be using TeamViewer, but what if the power goes out in my office? Then I can't log into my server. Here I can log in, I can do emergency calls and see all of their data, and it's very easy. It also gives you a lot of options for flexible or remote staffing, because everybody's going to have a unique login, and you can set a lot of settings on when they can log in, what they can do when they're logged in, and control everything. So it's the same as if they were at your practice. So if one of my, if my hygienist says, hey, I've got to go pick up my kid from daycare, can I finish this note when I get home? I don't have a problem with that because I know exactly what they're going to be doing and have access to. It just makes all of this stuff really easy because they're going to have everything's going to be logged under their name and so forth. Let's see. Increasing productivity and reducing costs. So this goes back to what I was talking about with all those add-ons I was looking at to get some modern features. With a lot of these softwares, and especially with Curve, these modern features are built in. So you're not going adding a third-party software to get these things. I talked about the backups built in, whereas with Dentrix, for example, if you had over 5 gigabytes of data, which I did, I was paying extra for that. The practice dashboards, at least with digital intelligence, from what I can tell, that's $500 a month. That's built in and beautiful in Curve. The imaging is built in, well, optionally built in, but I really think it's worth it. I'll show you how nice that is. So I don't need anything with Dexis. The patient engagement, they recently came out with Curve Grow, they call it. So it is kind of a module that optionally you can use, but it's going to give you all of this stuff. Text to pay is an option. Online forms that patients can fill out. Even online scheduling. I haven't messed with this, but the point is, I'm getting all of these features that patients are now expecting to be able to use, and it's super nice. As far as increased productivity, we have seamless updates. I just talked about that whole process I went through to get an update on my server software. Well, now the updates are seamless. It always happens, after hours or whenever. You don't even notice it, and you just get a little pop-up that'll say, hey, here's what's new. And on for example, March 16th, I logged in and took a little screenshot, and they said, we're improving the charting conditions, check it out. And there's been so many fantastic improvements since I got this software. They've improved the load times, they've improved the perio charting, they've added voice activated perio, they've added all this stuff, and they're continuing to do so. And the speed that they do this and the ability to just push it through seamlessly is really, really nice. Let's see. And now I'm going to kind of jump into the interface. So again, talking about increasing productivity, a lot of these softwares, and especially Curve, were built from the ground up with this framework in mind to be a modern software. And so the whole interface is more seamless. It's not these things haven't been just kind of tacked on. Everything's well thought out. There's not any redundancy. And it's more what you would expect if you were going to log into a modern software. And so that's really important because it increases, like, I don't know how to quantify this, but everything we do is faster. Everything we click on is faster. Everything makes sense. My new staff members just learn it really quickly because it's so easy. There's not a ton of little icons that you have to figure out what on earth they do. It's all very self-explanatory. And I'm going to jump in and show you some of those features now by just going to my software. I'm not going to be able to do a full demo, but I just wanted to show you some of the things that I think are so nice about this. So I'm going to stop sharing this and share my actual screen. Okay, so you should be seeing my interface now. I'm logged in here. You can see here's my login. That controls a lot of things versus if it was one of my staff members. And I've got this set up with 2 columns of production here and 2 columns of hygiene. But for each person in your practice or for multiple practices, you can change this, obviously, the number of columns and how they're arranged and what you see and what you don't. And that can be done per person if my hygienist only wants to see her columns or something like that. It's really clean. There's different, let me go to this day. There's different colors to show you if people are confirmed or not. But anyway, the schedule is pretty standard, so that's not a big deal. Let's see. This is where the real meat and potatoes is. This is called the sidebar here on the right. And instead of a lot of different actual applications to get into the patient's information, everything is just right here with little drop downs. If I want to see the patient's phone number to make a phone call or email them or whatever, I don't even have to leave the scheduler to do that. I can see if the patient has insurance. And if I click on this, I can go in and obviously get more information. But here I can see really quickly that they do. Same with claims, same with the recare, education, so on and so forth. You can get a lot of this stuff without ever leaving the scheduler, and nothing has to load. Only a few things actually take a second to load, which is the patient's chart and perio chart, but it's really quick. The notes I really like because the notes are a pop-up that are going to show up in front of whatever you're doing. So they're not going to make you leave what you're doing. I can still be looking at the schedule and then go through and read the notes. And I can filter based on, oh, I only want to see notes based on the billing or the clinical history, my clinical notes, whatever. It's all going to be right here. Really easy to see what was going on with the notes, and just click out of it and the notes are out of my way. The other really nice thing that I think is basically inherent to cloud software is that you can have multiple instances of the software open. So you can have one instance of the software open to the schedule. You can have one instance open to another tab, to their chart or whatever. And you can be sitting on another tab that shows their chart. So when I'm doing an exam, my assistant will have one tab open to the x-rays and one tab open to the notes. And I'll say, she'll be typing along what I'm saying. And then I'll say, hey, show me the x-ray between 3 and 4. And they're just switching to a different tab to look at that x-ray and then switching back. Multiple instances does not matter one bit. I can have the patient open, my front desk can have the patient open. If I make a change, I might have to say, refresh your browser so you can see that I added a filling to the treatment, and they refresh and it works. There's no conflicts there, and it's not a problem. So that's kind of a unique and useful feature. Let's talk about some other things as far as the interface goes. So here I'm on the chart, and you can see we've got an isodonogram and so forth. But what I like about this software, I mentioned that the interface is easy to learn, and that's because almost everything that is blue, it acts like a hyperlink, which is kind of what you're used to if you've from web browsing. So if I go over this and click on it, I know I'm going to get something. Click on this, search to do, back to this. If I click on the provider, I can see that this highlights over here. So I could switch it to a different provider if I wanted. I could switch to a different fee guide. When my staff members ask, well, what does this do? It's just like, click on it and see what the pop, you're going to get a pop-up with some options, and it's going to be pretty self-explanatory, which is super nice. Some other things with the interface while I'm right here. This is a patient that I saw yesterday, and we charted some things. You can see we charted some existing work. You can change these colors, but I've got that in green. We charted some work to be done. And down here is the treatment plan. And it's very nicely organized. You can name and change these appointments or whatever. So let's see, scheduled for April 8th, we called this appointment fillings, and we're planning on doing all of the fillings that day, so I have no problem with that. But I see that my assistant put veneer and crown lengthening on an appointment. It's not scheduled, but I'm not going to do crown lengthening and the veneer on the same time. I'm going to wait for the gums to settle to their final position before I do the final veneer. So I want to separate this out. And it's very, very easy. I'm going to grab this veneer and drag it down, and it's automatically going to create a new visit for me. And I can just drop it into that visit, and I'm going to right click and rename this. This will be I'll just call it final veneer. And then I can right click on this and rename it as well. So all of this is really easy and intuitive. You can drag things. You can drag things around like this from appointment to appointment, or even between treatment plans. Here, the patient wasn't sure if they were going to do this, so this is an optional treatment plan that I've added to improve aesthetics. She had 2 implant crowns we might replace, and it's not labeled right here, but I could come in and rename this visit, and I can again drag these things around. Like, okay, so this isn't what I want. We were also talking about maybe doing some Invisalign or Sure Smile, and that's sitting right in this. I'm going to drag this. Actually, I'm going to create a new treatment plan and call this ortho. And I'm going to pull this up here and go over here. And it's like I said, just basically drag and drop. Okay, I like that better. And bring this back down. So now we have things pretty well organized on that. So really intuitive, really fast user interface, a little bit different than maybe what you're used to seeing, but I really like the way this is set up. And then this is cool. I talked about if you have the imaging built right into it, you don't need a bridge, you don't need a third party. You can see I've got my history, my plan, and then imaging is right here. And we can go in and it breaks up and so as soon as you take an image, they'll instantly be uploaded into here and stored into the cloud. So it's all included with their data, and it breaks up everything by appointment date. So on March 3rd, we imported some images here, and it brings them in as sort of loose images, almost like if you were dealing with analog film, like these are the separate films. And that's when they were uploaded by my front desk. We got these from a different office, so they're uploaded. And I said, hey, I want to put these in a frame. So I created a mount or a frame for bite wings, and I just dragged them in here as if I was mounting this like we used to do when we would develop these. And so these are the same images, but it's telling me that I brought them into this mount on a different date. So everything's really nicely organized. And more than that, you can it doesn't matter whether it's something you've uploaded or taken the x-ray or taken a photo, whatever images, whatever source you bring that in from, it's just going to line them up on that day. So here on the 29th, you can see we we took a couple x-rays that I didn't get from the other office that I wanted. So I have a mount that includes some of these x-rays, and then I took a bunch of photos to help me talk to the patient, and I can just leave these as loose photos, or it doesn't matter. You can mount the photos into a frame like this if that's helpful to be able to scroll through them like an FMX. And more than that, when you bring these photos into the frame, it automatically sort of labels, like it's going to know that this is the 30-31 area just because of where I put it on there. And why that's helpful, let's go back to our planning. Let's say that we're looking at our odontogram, and I wanted to see the images that I have just for number 30. I can actually click here and say view images, and all of the images that are labeled as number 30 or tagged, if you will show up chronologically. So on March 15th, we've got a nice bite wing here. We've got another bite wing because that sort of the premolar one includes this, and it knows that. I've also got the photo because I put it in there, so it knows that this photo kind of belongs to this tooth. And I can just scroll through these just looking at tooth number 30. So the point of this is having the imaging integrated really saves time, makes everything very nicely organized, and it's one less add-on that I need to worry about. So I really like that. Some other things I wanted to show from the software would be talking about, modern, clean organization. I'm going to pull up this notepad because I'm showing some data that I don't want to show. But basically, here we are in the billing, and I really like the way they do this. They take whatever you did that day, like March 18th, we did some treatment. They're going to put that onto an invoice, and they're going to keep everything clustered together with regards to this date. So I can click on the invoice, and I see that we did some perio maintenance and a comprehensive perio eval. And here's our insurance, and here's the provider, all this details. So that's what's on the invoice. And then clustered together, even if it's not the same day, we have a claim with regards to that invoice. We do have an insurance payment for that invoice, and we have a patient payment for that invoice. and it's tidied these and kept them all together. So I can see exactly, instead of a line item kind of list chronologically, it's tying it all to that, so I can see exactly what was done there. Here we have another one with a crown, and basically the patient made a small. Oh, the patient had a credit. So again, I didn't even look at this beforehand, but I could see they had a credit. They made a payment. We sent a claim. We have a note with regards to this, and it's all tied together, very clean, very nice. I don't even know what I'm doing with all of this stuff, but I can figure it out if my front desk person is not available or something. Um, let's see. Finally, I talked about how they have really nice um, data analytics for your practice. And I'm going to just briefly open those. I don't want to go through the numbers for my practice, but I want you to see what some of these look like. So, I mean, you can see we've got all this stuff over here for practice review, key performance indicators, collections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How many patients have I got in the last 8 weeks? A really nice little chart. Active patients without recare, 27%. I don't like that. I should probably try to figure out why that is. That is sort of smacks you in the face when you have it in this sort of a format with the pie graph, average value of schedule and so on and so forth, collection versus production. I like how close those are to each other. But anyway, I just wanted to show you, you're getting this built in, these beautiful reports and beautiful interfaces. And why has that, talking about increasing productivity? As soon as I switched over to this and started running some reports, I found out, for example, that I had over 400 patients that were due for recall that we hadn't reached out to, that were sort of slipping through the cracks, just sitting there on the table, and that data was obviously there with the software I was using before, but I wasn't seeing it. I wasn't accessing it or whatever. And if it's not in front of you, you can be leaving a lot on the table with patients. We spend so much on marketing, but I had a bunch of patients that probably just needed a phone call and a reminder, see where they're at, and get them to come back in. And so the recare aspect is huge. There's just a ton of things like that, where if you can see it and you can track it and you can keep it organized, you can increase your productivity by so much. And I think that by using the updated interfaces with these things built in, it makes a huge difference. This has a really nice recare system, for example, over here on the side. You can see that for this patient, it says add recare. They're not set up for it because I just saw them yesterday. So we're going to go in and add some recare. I think that this patient is going to be coming back for routine care. So I'm going to say that we should track FMX. We should track how often we do exams. We should track bite wings, and we should track, let's see, adult prophies on this patient. They didn't need perio. So you can kind of choose what you're going to track per patient, because you might have a patient where you're doing 3 months, and you can set it, 3-month perio, 4-month perio, 6-month prophies. And when this is set up right, and we still need to do a little bit more here, it's going to show you everything, when they're due, when they should come in, if they're overdue, and all of this really nice tracking with visual indicators over here on the side. And then you can also use that to run your campaigns, to send them text messages and things like that. A quick look at that, by the way. If we go over here to Curve Grow, this is the patient communication module. That's sort of like your lighthouse or something like that. And we can come in here and we can check. Oh, and I need to figure out why these are going undelivered. Maybe I have something set up wrong, but we can see that we're sending patients emails. We can see, I don't want to dwell on this, but you can see that we text patients back and forth, which can be really helpful. If you have a patient that won't respond to emails, doesn't have a voicemail set up, you can just send them a text like, hey, where are you at? Are you going to be late for your appointment? Whatever. So really a lot we can do here. I need to set up some more campaigns and work on this some more because they've just introduced even more features. But all of this stuff is basically built in, really nice. So I think that I've kind of covered everything that I wanted to talk about, and I've given a good demonstration of this interface and how clean it is. There's obviously a lot of other options, a lot more that you could go into a demo if you wanted. But the point is, there just by switching to cloud software or a lot of these new modern softwares, especially Curve, you're going to get so much bang for your buck, and I love it. It's really improved my practice. It has increased my productivity and reduced my overhead, which was the purpose of this. So a big thanks to Curve Dental for putting this on, for inviting me to share my thoughts. I hope it was interesting to you and sort of gives you some information on a new software that maybe you haven't looked at before that could be beneficial in your practice. So that's the end of my comments, and we're going to open this up to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Streeter. That was a very good presentation. There are some questions coming in, but before I get to those, I would like to again invite our viewers to use the chat box on the right side of your screen to ask any questions that you have. And also keep an eye on your screen because there will be a special offer for attendees of this webinar. So keep an eye on the screen for a little surprise. First question, what is the most important thing you look for when choosing a cloud provider? Actually, what I'm asking is what would be a must-have for you?
Well, it's kind of hard to nail it down to one thing. Certainly making sure that they have a good track record on their conversions. I know that I was really concerned about losing some patient data or having some kind of hiccup or error with bringing everything over. That it's a stressful thing to switch all of your software, and so that was big. And then just making sure that they're going to be able to do all of the things you need for your practice. I didn't dig into every single offering. Like I don't know exactly what's going on with Dentrix Ascend, for example, but at least when I was looking, some of them did not have all of the features you would need to run your practice. At least that's how it seemed to me. They would have most things, they would have certain things, but they weren't the complete package, and that would really stress me out. So that's what I would be looking, doing a really thorough demo and asking other people that have had it and make sure it's going to have everything you need, I suppose would be my number one thing.
Okay. Second, how did your staff react to switching software?
Well, they were fine with it. I had good staff that are quick to learn, and they're used to me adding new technology and saying, "Hey, here's the thing we're doing now." And so they were fine with it. We did some training, and it's so easy. Like, because I've hired new staff since, and it's always the same thing. On their resume, they say, "I've got experience with Dentrix. I've got experience with EagleSoft." And then they come in and they're like, "I've never heard of Curve Dental." But I'm like, don't worry about it. It takes about a week or less to get into the groove of it as we go. Things are arranged a little differently, but in no time you'll figure it out and you'll really like it. So it hasn't really been an issue. My front desk person, my insurance specialist, has had questions on things that I can't answer. And I just said, "Hey, put in a ticket or call Curve and they'll straighten and they'll tell you what you need to know." And they always have. And she said, "Okay, I got my answer. We're good." So it's been fine.
Okay. Of all the features in Curve, what would you say are your and your staff's favorite? So maybe you could say what your favorite is and then what a favorite of the staff would be.
My favorite is that sidebar that I showed off. Just having all of the patient record accessible and quick, and not loading up a separate module or something like that. Everything is more efficient. So it's not necessarily that like one feature, but the efficiency of the way it's built because I would get so frustrated with waiting on things to load or with the little everyday things that just seemed like they could be done more quickly.
Okay. How does Curve software improve the patient's experience?
Well, I mean, in a sense, the patients don't always see what's going on behind the scenes. So I wouldn't say that it's improving their experience, maybe sitting in the chair, but I'm now able to offer a lot of features that patients expect, such as, being able to pay through a text link or pay online their bill, or getting a text message. A lot of older patients maybe don't care so much about that, but the newer generation, they want a text reminder for their appointment. Uh, those kinds of things have a big impact. So the sort of modern patient engagement or communication aspects, I think patients really notice. And like I said, I haven't used these, but there's going to be a way for patients to schedule, which is becoming more and more popular. You're seeing a lot of that. You're probably getting advertisements for third-party softwares to allow patients to go on and schedule themselves. That always kind of makes me nervous because I like to have very tight control over my schedule and how much time I have for procedures or whatever. But I think the future is going that way, and Curve's already implementing that. And so these things that patients are starting to expect, you're going to be able to offer.
Okay, and one more question we have time for that you may have touched on a little bit. How easy is it to create reports, and how do you use them?
Well, the reports are really easy. Um, I could share my screen here for a second and show some of that potentially. So I'm just going to share my entire screen, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go to report. So I showed you the dashboards, which are sort of the really nice pie charts and whatnot. But as far as actual reports, you can come in and you have a huge amount of different reports that you can look at and customize. Let me see if I can find one that's not going to have a bunch of data. Let's just go to like patient reports, active patients. Okay, that should be fine to load up here. So we've got all these reports, some that were built in, some that I've added if I wanted to look at these. And you can completely customize what columns are in here. You can set filters, like I want patients that are active and so on and so forth, and you can get totals. And you're not waiting or printing this report like in some of the server-based softwares. You have to like generate it and wait for it to load for a long time, and then finally you can generate a report. Shoot, I'm showing a lot of patient data here, but anyway, the reports are completely customizable. They pop up instantly. You can get numbers off of them. You can print them if you want, whatever. And so I'm going to stop sharing that. So like I said earlier, that's like I found a ton of patients that were overdue for recall that we hadn't reached out to. And so that made a big impact. We started reaching out to these patients and getting people back in. Things like that are really important for the practice.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, but we've run out of time today. And if we did not get to your question, we will answer it after the webinar via email. Shortly, we will send you a link to a replay of this presentation. And remember to look on the right side of your screen. On my right side of the screen, it says Curve Dental has created a special promotional offer for all attendees of Dr. Jason Streeter's webinar. Please click on the link for offer details. So click on offer details to get your little surprise there. Thank you again for attending, and a special thank you to Dr. Jason Streeter and for our sponsor for this webinar, Curve Dental. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.